$540,000.
You are watching Beyond the News. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Ever get that feeling like something just doesn't add up?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially when it comes to stories where people are just trying to do the right thing, you know?
Right. Well, today's deep dive is one of those head scratchers for sure.
Sounds intriguing already.
It all centers around this mom, Michelle Thomas, and her son,
Okay.
7 years old, and starts acting really strange.
Oh, no. What was going on?
Couldn't sleep, shouting at night, just totally not himself.
I can only imagine how scary that would be for a parent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so naturally, she's worried sick, right?
Of course.
And she decides to turn to her pastor for guidance.
Seems reasonable. Someone you'd trust.
Yeah. Seems like a natural first step for a lot of people,
Mm.
especially when you're dealing with something you just don't understand.
Definitely. Especially when it seems like it could be something beyond like a normal childhood issue.
Exactly.
Makes you wonder if there's something else going on.
Well, in this case, the pastor comes up with a pretty unexpected explanation.
Okay. I'm all ears.
He tells her it's not a medical problem, it's a spiritual attack.
A spiritual attack.
Yeah, he claims her house and yard are haunted by duppies.
Duppies. I'm not familiar.
Me neither. I had to look it up myself.
He told me that the yard wanted to clear and Duppy somewhat in the yard and Duppy played my son. So what happened was that I believed him because my son was behaving very strange and he was having a lot of sleepless nights and all of that. I bring him to churches, different churches, and they prayed for him and so and all of that. So when I spoke to him, he told me that it's a spiritual problem.
Okay.
Turns out they're these restless spirits from Jamaican folklore.
Wow, that's pretty out there.
Right. Sounds like something straight out of a horror movie.
Yeah, it does. But think about it from Michelle's perspective.
Okay.
You're already terrified for your child, and then suddenly you're told he's being targeted by these negative forces.
Yeah, I can see how that would be unsettling.
It's a really powerful narrative, even if it sounds far-fetched to an outsider.
And it really plays into those fears when you're desperate for answers.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, the pastor doesn't stop there.
Oh no.
He says he can get rid of these duppies, but for a hefty price tag.
How hefty are we talking?
Try $540,000.
$540,000. That's outrageous.
It is.
$540,000.
And to make matters worse, he offers to let her pay in installments.
Almost like he was trying to make it easier to swallow.
Exactly preying on that desperation to help her son.
I told him that was so much and I asked him if I can pay him by half and half, and he told me that's okay. So I end up paid the money in quarters.
It's just awful to think someone would exploit a situation like that.
It really is, and you have to wonder if something called confirmation bias played a role here.
Confirmation bias, what's that?
It's basically when we're more likely to believe information that confirms our existing beliefs, even if it's not totally logical.
So, like, Michelle was already convinced something was wrong, so she was looking for any explanation that fit.
Exactly, even if it didn't quite make sense objectively.
And when you're stressed, it's harder to think clearly anyway.
Right. Our critical thinking skills can really take a hit when we're under pressure, and then you add in a figure of authority like a pastor.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Unfortunately.
So did Michelle end up paying.
Sadly, she did. Paid a huge chunk of that money, hoping it would help her son.
And did it?
Of course not.
Oh, man.
It wasn't until she took him to a doctor that they discovered the real problem.
Which was?
A nervous system issue.
So completely unrelated to any kind of spiritual attack.
If it's a medical issue, bring the individual to a doctor. If it's a spiritual issue, bring the individual to a trusted pastor. I know desperate people do desperate things, but whenever you're in desperation, stop and think. Whenever you have to pay for healing, you automatically know that it's a lie and it's a scam and it's not of God. The only person you pay for healing is the other man. And he doesn't really have power to heal either.
It just goes to show the danger of jumping to those kinds of conclusions.
It's so important to get the right expertise for the problem.
Absolutely.
Like taking your car to a mechanic who only checks the paint job, never looks under the hood.
Perfect analogy. I bet Michelle was furious when she found out.
Oh, absolutely. Rightfully
Right.
so. She called out those kinds of pastors who take advantage of people's faith for their own gain.
What did she say exactly?
She said, and I quote, These pastors nowadays, they're misleading other people, and they can't be doing that because if you say you're going to help somebody, and then when you take stock, within yourself, you can't help somebody, and then you take them for a fool, it doesn't make any sense. What kind of pastor are you?
No, baby gonna be sleeping top good and everything will be in your whole soul good. Nothing. The problem was still there. These pastors nowadays, they're misleading other people. You understand? And they can't be doing that. Because if you say you're going to help somebody and then know, when you take a stock, you know you can't, within yourself, like you can't help somebody and then you take them for food, it don't make no sense. What kind of pastor are you? Everything when I'm saying I'm going to do, him never do it. So it was just basically telling me, taking my money and telling me all kind of foolishness.
Man, those are some strong words.
Yeah, she was understandably angry. It's a huge betrayal of trust.
It is.
Using your position to manipulate people instead of actually helping them, it raises a really important question, though. How do we balance faith with critical thinking?
Especially when people are at their most vulnerable.
Right, because you want to have faith in your religious leaders? Exactly.
But at the same time, you need to protect yourself.
Isn't faith all about trust?
It is, but blind trust can be dangerous.
I guess that's true in any situation, not just religion.
Yeah, think about those scams and con artists. They prey on people's hopes and fears.
You're right.
It's all about finding that balance, being discerning without being disrespectful,
How do you do that, though?
asking questions, seeking multiple perspectives, maybe even talking to someone outside the situation for an objective viewpoint.
Good advice.
And it's important to remember this isn't just about religion, it applies to so many areas of life.
So, what happened with Michelle? Did she try to get her money back?
She did. She tried to sue the pastor,
Man,
hit a wall. The court said her case was outside their jurisdiction.
seriously,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
it highlights the challenges of proving fraud based on belief. You're
Yeah.
basically trying to prove someone intentionally misled someone else based on faith, which is subjective.
So, how do you even begin to prove that? It's tough, and it raises questions about how we protect people from exploitation in religious contexts, especially when the legal system can't really help.
It's a tough situation all around. So Michelle's basically out all that money with no recourse.
Yeah. It's a truly unsettling story, Michelle. Like, any loving parent was just desperate to help her child, and she ended up being taken advantage of.
It's heartbreaking. It makes you wonder about all the other people out there who might be going through the same thing.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even within communities we trust, we still need to be cautious and think critically.
That's such an important point. I feel like we could do a whole other deep dive on just that.
We probably could.
This story is just a small glimpse into a much bigger issue.
And it's not about condemning faith at all, it's about promoting healthy skepticism.
Absolutely. It's okay to ask questions.
Hmm.
It's okay to seek out different perspectives. It's about protecting yourself and your loved ones.
Exactly. Even when it feels uncomfortable.
So, where does this leave us? It feels like there are no easy answers.
There aren't, but that's part of what makes this deep dive so thought provoking, right?
Yeah, I mean, how do we as individuals and as communities make sure faith is a source of strength and not a vulnerability that can be exploited?
It's a question we all need to grapple with.
Because ultimately, it's about finding that balance between trust and discernment.
And that's something we all need to be mindful of in every aspect of our lives, not just religion.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Eh.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Of course, always happy to be here.
And to all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay informed, and always trust your gut.
Absolutely.